Hey guys, welcome to the Rational Optimization Podcast. My guest today is Ross Howard. He's the author of the book Changing Names, The Changeling and the Witch. He's also a sociologist and a teacher. And today we talked about his process of writing this book. And yeah, it's a fantasy book, by the way. And yeah, also about the validity of science and like the truth of science. And we also went into meditation, Buddhism. It was the first time I shared an idea, and it's the idea that I want to go maybe on a meditation retreat where you just sit for 10 days, sit and meditate, no talking, no looking other people's in the eyes. Yeah, we talked about this idea. It was interesting. Guys, enjoy. Children's fantasy book, like a short one, or
it ended up being pretty long. It was kind of my dream since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Since I read Northern Lights and Harry Potter and the Spiderwick Chronicles and things like that, I always wanted to write a fantasy book. It was always my favorite thing to read those kind of things. So a lot of my life I was like writing things and not liking them, and this is a fantasy book about pre-Christian Ireland, which took I was doing it kind of like passively on and off for 3 years, and then I did the editing process during COVID and finished it off.
Okay, what is it like? What? How many pages?
It's 20 chapters, so I think it's like it's a lot. I think
Just say about
like 400 pages.
Damn, that's
maybe 300 pages.
Book.
Yeah. Maybe it was my editing. I should have edited it more. But yeah, it was a really nice process, and to actually finishing something after writing for a long time, it was nice. So yeah, today I put it onto Kindle because I've sent it around to publishers, and nobody wants to publish it. One person wanted to co-publish it with me, so I would have to pay money as well. But then I could lose money, and I don't want to lose money on a book. But I suppose a lot of the podcast is about meaning. A lot of your podcast is about meaning, right? Yeah. I guess that has been a big part about the meaning drive of my life, is doing something that I dreamed about as a kid and trying to get better at writing. I guess that gives me a lot of meaning in life.
Mm-hmm. Just, I'm curious. Like, it's okay. This podcast, it's mainly about meaning, but just if there's something interesting, it's for all.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Like,
I don't have to always pull it back.
Yeah, exactly. What is your book about? Like.
So it's about a girl called Beth, who she's being kept prisoner by or not prisoner, but like a foster daughter of a witch, and then she leaves to try to find priestesses of her favorite goddess. But she leaves the place where the witch lives, and she starts to find out that all the gods are being sacrificed to a different god.
And then she has to save. Or
save, yeah. She has to save the Morrigan, or try to save other gods. And then, I guess I put a lot of like my own thoughts and philosophy into it. So I think that the way that I see religion and belief a lot of the time is everything feeds into the next layer of belief. So even if you're let's say a Christian, and all your beliefs technically should be completely against, Greek pagan beliefs, the Greek pagan beliefs still inform so much of what comes after, whether it really agrees with the key tenets of Christianity or not. So a lot of the things that I was looking at in this book were, I don't like discuss it like this, but it's about syncretism and like how beliefs come together to form something else. Beliefs don't really, in my opinion, eradicate other beliefs. They like synthesize them. They like meet them halfway and form something new.
So over time it changes. like gets into a new one, and you put this into the book by are those like the gods? Are they all like from a polytheistic like world, or are those like different beliefs, like God of different? Like, is there like the I don't know, like the gods of the Vikings and the gods of the Romans and the gods of the Greeks, or
something like that? It's all based in Ireland, so it's all Celtic gods, and it's like different waves of Celtic gods. And one of them is more monotheistic, and it seemed like it might sweep everything else away, and it ends mixing the beliefs in a way. And carrying it forward, not through eradicating other beliefs, but through absorbing them in a sense. And the main character, as she goes on, starts to realize that the Morrigan was not the absolute enemy of previous gods, that she actually came from a wave of previous gods. And that's something that I was reading about Celtic mythology, and it was like other people, waves of people would come into Ireland, but they would never wipe out all the beliefs. They would just get added to the system. So in Irish mythology, one of the biggest sources is called the Book of Invasions. And that is about 4 waves of immigration into Ireland, like kind of mythological. But they reckon the mythology might have been based in something real, like different waves of like Celts, along with like Indo-Europeans, people who came before that, different waves of Celtic beliefs, and all of these people brought their own cultures, their own moral beliefs, and sometimes they would have been completely different or opposed to the other beliefs, but they found the middle ground somehow, do you know? So it's about, I suppose, about culture and how culture develops. But like these are all like the overarching ideas. When do you know, like it's still supposed to be entertaining? Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be entertaining. So yeah, I tried to make it entertaining, and it took me years to write it in a way where I didn't hate reading it, because now I can kind of read it and go, oh, this isn't terrible. But before, a year ago, I was everything. I was just like, this is all terrible. This is all terrible. So to get to a point where I'm like, this is okay. This is much closer to anything I've ever written before, to my idea of what I wanted to write. So I put it onto Kindle books today, and I will make my family and friends buy it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's How was the process like? Like you say in the beginning, you spent 3 years on the book, right?
It was yeah. So I 3 years. Yeah. I think 3 years, maybe 4 years. I had a previous book which I kind of scrapped, but lots of the ideas came into that, and I began writing that in Madrid 5 years ago. And the idea for the book, I think I've always kind of had since I was a child. So this is still something I wanted to like fine tune and shave off all the spare parts, and then try to actually get it to a point where I was happy enough with it. And it was my favorite thing when I was a kid to read stuff by J.K. Rowling and Diana Wynne Jones and Philip Pullman, and that never really left me. I still enjoy those kind of books. I still enjoy that different kind of perspective on things that it gives. And I think that writing for a younger age group doesn't make it like weaker or worse fiction. It's just you have to express it in a specific way. So I still think that a lot of the best books I've ever read have been aimed for children. Obviously, I like lots of books, but that was the one that really connected with me most.
Okay, nice. And so you wrote like your first draft, and then you kept like
I hated the first draft.
Yes.
I hated the first draft. And because I wrote it in a big rush, then I was like, oh, this is actually really good. Then I read it back and I was like, oh, I should never write again. This is the worst thing in the world. But then I completely scrapped that, went back at the plan again, got that to a point where I was happy enough with it, got other people to read it and criticize it as much as I could. And yeah, just chipped away at it so much until it was done. It was a lot of work, but I think the process was worth it. Even if I don't expect it to get any attention or to make money besides like me pushing my friends and family into buying it. That should be worth like, I don't know, 100 quid or something. But when I look back at it, the process was worth it.
Okay. So you just did it for like because you like to write, or is there like a plan to become an author, like a proper?
If the opportunity arose, it would be fantastic, but I don't expect to. Especially, I was very happy with this book, and it didn't have so many takers. So, do you know, I could keep writing for the rest of my life and not...
So many takers?
So many people who, when I was sending it to publishers, not so many people who wanted to take it.
Okay, yeah.
So it was really nice to, some parts were really shitty to write, but lots of it was very interesting. The process of thinking about it and filling it out was very interesting. So I think it felt like it helped my own perspective in a way. It helped me really appreciate other writers even more getting to this point. And I already... Do you know, like I love Philip Pullman and Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore and Diana Wynne Jones, these kind of authors. And doing this helped me to appreciate those kind of writers even more. And the discipline when you're writing about a fantasy world to stay in a lane and not let everything just get carried away.
How much time do you think did this take?
Oh Jesus, so much time. When I think about all the time in like cafes and buses and planes and times in the evening. I used to wake up at work before Spain at 6 so I could write for an hour. But I was in Spain, so it was hot as hell as well, so it made sense to wake up at 6. How much? I would say hundreds of hours. This is writing it over years.
It's probably hard to
writing
calculate.
most days. It's impossible for me to calculate accurately. Like I got no idea.
Yeah.
But if I said like 500 hours, like it could easily be 500 hours. Yeah. It could be close to like 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that before.
It's cool. Like it's yeah. If, as you said, like there's a lot of experience in it, maybe, and it's like, yeah, depends on the goal, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a book that I read called the War of Art.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
I think I read the summary.
Okay, yeah, and it was I got it as a present, and it felt like one of the most true books that I ever read. The idea of like resistance and how that pushes you away from the thing that you really want to do, and the thing that you really want to do can be very difficult to do. And I found lots of times sitting down and writing it felt very difficult to do. like sometimes I wake up at 6 in the morning. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna write for an hour, then I can go to work. And sometimes like, what am I doing? Like, this is who's gonna read this? Who's this for? Like, I'm waking up an extra hour for no reason. But then later on the reason was completing it. The reason was being able to do it. And having it like like a manuscript, like done, felt very significant. And looking back at the first draft compared to the last draft and seeing the progress that I'd made as a writer, even if I'm not a great writer now, just that progress was so much. And I think, I could have spent that on other things, but I probably would have spent it on something. I probably would have wasted that time if I hadn't have focused on this. So it was very rewarding. And I know you said we don't have to talk specifically about meaning.
We will.
But yeah, you got the questions about meaning.
Yeah.
But it felt very meaningful for me in a very satisfying way. And when I think back on being able to have made it, it still makes me happy when I think about it, it was a good experience.
Nice, man. Cool. So a little bit about you before we talk more about meaning. Like, what is first, what are you doing? What made you come here to the Netherlands?
I wanted to study again. I was a bit unsure about what I wanted to do. I was working as an English teacher in Vietnam, and I thought about going back to university, study history for a long time. And that's what I studied when I first went to university, when I was like 18 to 22, and I took a break off to teach English. So I wanted to come back to get further education just so I could get like a solid job. So I came back and I studied sociology instead of history, because a sociology degree would be a science degree, so it'd be more likely that I would get a job. But looking back, I wish I had studied history instead.
Why?
I think I connect with it better than I do with science and statistics. Obviously, history includes science and statistics as well. Statistics are very important, but something about the dryness of sociology, I didn't really connect with. We did a statistics course. I didn't think it was very well taught. By the end of it, people weren't even answering the lecture and stuff. So it was like, it was useful to a point, but maybe not so much for me. And I think sociology is very interesting, and it can be very useful. But I find history more colorful. I find it easier to engage with history. And looking back, I wish I had chosen to study a master's in history instead of sociology. Still not too late, but it was still something that I don't know, because I feel like I can really connect with history. I feel like I can really see the use. I can really see how colorful it is when different cultures mingle, and how that's introduced so many amazing things into the world, and so many also like horrific things into the world. And as much as you can try to be objective, they've really gotten rid of the idea of objectivity up to a point. In
history,
yeah. But in terms of like the narratives, I find a lot of the narratives very interesting. And I like that history is a discipline now where they're kind of like, you can't get to the absolute truth. Getting to the absolute truth doesn't work. You should try, but you can't exactly. The idea that everything is subjective, every fact you pick is subjective, I find that very interesting. And I think that's true from my experiences with the social sciences in terms of sociology and psychology as well. But they're kind of more like, no, this is a science. This is really a science. Don't believe anybody who says it's humanity. And then I was like experiencing, and I was like, there are statistics involved. Of course, everything involves statistics. But it still seems imprecise to the point where it's more of a humanity than a science. And I didn't realize it to that extent when I started studying sociology, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, you study psychology, right?
I studied psychology.
Yeah,
science. Now, like all the lectures in the beginning of psychology were all like about establishing why this is a science and how we work. And it's like all how like the empirical method, how we conduct experiments, how we gain knowledge in psychology, and it was actually pretty good explanation how they try to make it a science. Of course, you can't really. It's really, really hard to get to objective truth, if maybe even impossible in this field. But still, there are methods to get closer to truth, and with experiments and studies, you can for sure advance, and they really try to do it right, but it's hard.
No, for sure. And I'm sure, you know, it gets better with every single data point that you can get.
Yeah. But I see the problem in saying this is ultimate truth. Like, we found it out now, and this is how it is.
Yeah. Especially when it's something like, sometimes I'd see something and it'd be like, choose your method of analysis based on the thing that's most likely to get you a result. And, you know, you can say like, oh, you're not allowed to change your method of analysis. But if you examine your data set before you go into any kind of publishing process, you can change it as many times as you want. No? So maybe now it's getting better. It's getting more like rigorous. Yeah. Because now I think that if you propose an idea I saw was that you pre-register, exactly, and that seems like a really good idea. But I don't know how much that is actually true in the field. Do you know? Like, it could absolutely be true, but from my experience, it seemed like a lot of tweaking things just a little bit to see how it goes, see if it can become significant. And as much as they say like they're trying to get rid of significance being like the important thing because that drives prejudice and different interpretations, it drives like manipulation of the data to get the result you want. Is that like effective yet? From what I've seen, it's not very effective yet. I think they're trying. I think they're trying their best, and I think especially like with open science pre-registration and stuff, there are improvements, and they are like always thinking back. Like, there's so much critique. Like, for example, the replication crisis. I think you also. Didn't we talk about it? We talked about this in the sauna. Yeah, exactly. It's actually, for all the people listening to this, we met in the sauna. But it's the replication crisis. This was in philosophy, in psychology, it was a big thing as well. And I think from that on, they really tried to improve their methods. So this is not gonna happen again. So I don't know if it's like it's perfect. It's for sure not perfect now, but it's improving, and I think this is fine. Like, you can't find absolute truth, but you can get closer to it, and they try to improve the methods. Yeah. And I suppose like it doesn't have to be absolutely true as long as it's applicable and useful. So even as long as and I suppose replicating certain types of like subjective psychological studies anyway is such a difficult thing. It's such a difficult thing where if you introduce like two subjects, you know?
What do you mean?
Like, let's say if you have an experiment where you involve two individuals instead of one individual, then both of them have to react the same way generally. And I suppose the idea is that you multiply it out so many times that you get an average. But then how many variables do you need to like make that accurate in some way. It seems like it would be, and I suppose now is the time when we do get those data sets that are so big and encompass every single thing you do to the point that it knows you better than you, then that can create like an accurate thing. But from what I see, like that's big tech companies and big data centers. I don't know, I'm not sure how much that is universities who have access to that, but I could be wrong.
I think it's hard, yeah. So what you say, it's like you can make probability judgments. I did a podcast with a friend on this, like on like how accurate this tried through induction, like through like you have your sample and you learn something through it and you get like probabilities and stuff, but you don't really like, you don't start to really understand, like you just like I can't tell you, like just because I have like a rule that I found out from a study with like 1 million people, even if it's like super accurate, I can't really tell how it is for one specific human, because there are so many more variables, you know. And yeah, I think it's hard. How is this like in sociology? So is even more like focused on big groups. Like what exactly did you research there? Or
we looked at lots of things. I was doing a health specific track of sociology. So we looked specifically, me from my master's, I looked at what's the name of the big European sample again? Everybody uses it. I used a sample which was across 7 European countries, focused in secondary schools.
It's okay, just a yeah.
It was a European-wide study, and it's focused on smoking and group influence. I think they found out something like it was like over half of the cases they had to annul immediately because they wouldn't answer the questions about smoking still. I didn't think it was such a great study. When I looked at it, it didn't seem as accurate as people let on, but it was a huge sample size, and it is a big thing. It is a big thing across all of that. So I looked at that. We looked at a few different sample sizes. I thought the theory was the most interesting thing about a lot about sociology. And the last day we talked about when we met at the gym, I think we talked about Daniel Kahneman and like the 2 tracks of thought.
Thinking, yes.
But that's really struck with me. That was something. There were certain things that I learned studying a master's at Tilburg, and I'd heard about this kind of idea before, but when we kind of went into it more then, I thought it was very interesting.
The idea is from Daniel Kahneman, there are like 2 ways of thinking. Like system 1 is system 2 thinking, slow thinking, fast thinking. I think he wrote a book, Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's about that as humans we mostly think pretty reflexively, like but we can we think super fast with prejudice, with intuition, and this is a really effective way, but often also leads to mistakes. And there's like the second way of thinking. This is like the deep, controlled, slow thinking, where you are really thinking, which takes a long time, but can be more accurate. But it's also much more energy intensive and time intensive, so it's and one of them is just kind of like a reflex. And one of the ideas which we examined, which grew out of that, was the idea that nearly everything you do is actually based on your like immediate self, like your reflexive self, and that the main purpose of stream 2 thinking, I think stream 2 is slow thinking, right? I think so as well, yeah.
That could be seen more as like a way of thinking to create narratives about yourself and about the world. So like, let's say you're hungry immediately, so you snap at somebody and you get angry at someone. But then you don't connect it back to the eating, and then maybe later on you're like, I'm a bad person. That would be, I think, considered like, that would be like stream 2 thinking, filtering just your hunger and putting it into some kind of moral aspect, when it was something completely biologically driven. So maybe it wasn't immoral at all. And the same way, the other thing, you saw somebody hitting a woman on the street and you just reacted and attacked them, and it's like, oh, you're brave, you're a moral person. But morality, I think, implies, thinking about it deeply. And so how much is that reflected on just your urges? Are these how much are your reflexive urges based on your personality, and how related is your stream 1 thinking to your stream 2 thinking? Like your actions and what you do, and how you reflect on them, and how you bring them into yourself as a being, as a person. Which of those is actually more prominent?
So about the thing, like the with the free will. So it feels like your system 2 tells you, you have free will. Like, I did this because I'm a moral person. Mm-hmm. But like in real life, system 1 was just like you think that you made like a rational decision, but in real life it was just like a decision that was influenced by like that you were hungry in this moment and you didn't sleep well the night before, and like do you believe we have free will?
What do you mean by free will?
Do you believe that? So before, like, maybe we can say, do you believe that the system 2 still the system 2 still makes decisions, or is everything system 1 and system 2 only? Like, I don't even know if this is like the exact like use of the way Kahneman used this, but we can say with this definition, like, would you say that system 2 steers at all, or is it just interpreting what like you do based on your emotions and like processes?
I really like meditation, and I really like some of the ideas about that Buddhism attaches to meditation. And I think that you can have free will, in terms of that stream 2 can become imbued to you into the point, if you're regularly thinking about these moral things, then maybe it can affect your immediate reactions, especially when, like, I used to have a same problem that lots of people have, that I would be too carried away with my emotions. If I was sad, I would get really sad and I would react to situations based on that. If I was angry, the same. If I was happy, the same. It wasn't a level position to be acting on. But if you meditate more, then you can realize certain biological urges. Maybe like heat on the face, a pain in the stomach, tingling on your skin. Things that when you're in a heightened emotional state, maybe you don't realize are even happening. But when you meditate and meditate yourself into a position where you're normally stressed, you can say, how does my body react to this stress? And then you effectively get more control of it. And when I've been meditating recently and I do get into a stressful situation, it is like all of the meditation I've been doing has been practice for this exact situation. So I think with certain ways of training the mind, stream 2 thinking can become connected with you in a way where it becomes the immediate reaction. But then I suppose the whole thing about free will is like, what made you meditate in the first place? And then it's like, okay, well then I don't know. I don't know. But in terms of being able to change your immediate reactions to match more with your underlying belief system. I think you can do it with practice and discipline up to a point. Yeah.
It's interesting. Do you meditate a lot? Or?
I meditate every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes for 10 minutes. Sometimes if I have longer, an hour.
Yeah.
And I find it very useful. I know people who don't, because that thing, you know, like the chattering mind, the mind that won't shut up. I've always had a big problem with that. So I can see the positive effect almost immediately once I understood what meditation was kind of like. Because I had the same thing that lots of people had, where you start meditating and you're like, oh, this sucks. This is just constant. I can't empty my. And then it's like you get to a point where I'm like, oh, the same thing with writing. It's the process. It's not about. It is about emptying the mind, but it's about failing. That's what it felt like to me anyway. The more you fail with like rejecting these thoughts or putting them out of your mind, the more you start to realize the easiest way to get rid of a thought, which is really obtrusive, is to accept it. To like, do you know, like when something's really resistant to it, what I always learned from Buddhism was it's not actually the pain that causes the suffering. It's not mainly the pain. The thing that causes the suffering is the resistance to the pain. And whenever I've had a repetitive thought, and I do have a real problem with like repetitive thoughts sometimes, if I can accept that repetitive thought and not get annoyed at it, which is kind of getting annoyed at myself, it's ridiculous, then it's so much easier to let it go or reabsorb it into you or have it gone. So much of meditation felt like learning that sometimes pushing does not help. Sometimes, especially when you're pushing your own mind, it causes more problems than you're going to fix anyway. And that accepting these things and slowly working on them is much healthier. And I think that is true for a lot of my experiences in life. So I feel like meditation has been very, very useful in like difficult times. Yeah.
Do you all good? Do you have any connections to Buddhism, or did you only start meditating for yourself because like you found out about it on YouTube video or something?
I don't remember the first time I ever meditated. I'm trying to think. I suppose it probably would have been like in a religion class or a philosophy class in school. Well, religion, I'm from Ireland. We didn't have a philosophy class in my school. We had a religion class. And we did meditation there, and I didn't take it seriously. I didn't care. I think the first time I really got into it heavily was when I was in Spain and I started meeting more people who were interested in it, and I met a few Buddhists who explained the theory behind it, and I thought the theory was very like, don't think about them having a fun time. Don't think about it. That is all I can think about. Then I'm trying to push it down, and it's in my head. I'm trying to use my own mind to shut up my mind. It's ridiculous. And then when I was like, oh, it doesn't matter, even if it was true, which I have no way of knowing if it is true. And then allowing those thoughts to go through that was the most useful thing for me. And when I used to work in Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh as an English teacher, and I went on holiday with my ex at the time, my girlfriend, and her mother, and I lost my passport in Thailand. We went to Thailand, and I lost my passport. I got stolen. I think it got stolen. But it was gone. And so I got stuck in Thailand for 4 weeks when I wasn't supposed to be there. So I was living in this hostel, just trying to spend as little money as I could until I went home, until I could get my passport from Ireland and go back to Vietnam. But the owner of the B&B I was at was a really nice Thai woman, and she was really into Buddhism, and she gave me this fantastic meditation primer by Akan Chak, I think, but it was really excellent, and it talked about different stages of meditation and different problems people have and the resistance that people can have to it, and it really resonated with me. I really enjoyed the stillness of it. I really enjoyed, especially when you do it for ages and you're like 40 minutes in, 45 minutes in. And sometimes I'd be like, I set my alarm for an hour and I'd be sitting there, I'd be like, I definitely forgot to set my alarm. This has to have been like 6 hours. Like my mind would be fully like, it's like 7 o'clock. You've been here for 6 hours. What are you doing? What are you doing? And be like, no, don't open my eyes to see if it's nighttime yet. And I love that feeling of reminding myself of how variable time is, or the perception of time is all over the place. And if I just shut my eyes and try to focus on my mind for 40 minutes, it seems like it could be 10 hours. It seems like it could be 3 minutes. And just being lost in that space, I think, is very refreshing, and I still really like that. That's something I come back to to meditation again and again. Sometimes I feel like I have to do these things today. I need to rush to do these things. I have to do all these things. And then I would meditate and remember how time is so variable depending on how you look at it. And a lot of the time, the stress would have been causing me to waste time anyway. And so many of the things about not being angry at your thoughts and not pushing away your thoughts and not being guilty about your thoughts, and understanding that they are you to an extent, but to another extent, they are their own thing. You don't control them so much. You might as well try to control the flow of blood in your veins. Like, it's something that you have to accept to a certain extent. Blood in the veins is probably a bad example because you can't control your thoughts eventually. So yeah, I think that everything that I learned about Buddhism and meditation and letting go of things, it made sense to me. The only thing I really still struggle with is the idea, and I might just be a misunderstanding, but the idea that once you let go of everything, that's the goal. And once you let go of all attachments to everybody, that's the goal. But that seems also not attractive to me, if you get me. Like, the idea of having it completely level to the point where it's like, okay, I'm not going to get affected by it. I have empathy for people, but I'm not getting torn up by them being in pain, and I'm focused on helping them rather than feeling their pain, then that's fantastic. But it seems like, and I could be misunderstanding it, it seems like the ultimate goal of Buddhism is complete disconnection.
I think, yeah, it's maybe...
Which seems like too much, no?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's an idea. It's like I also really like the ideas of Buddhism, but like not 100%, because it's like, if you see, like, also this life is suffering. I don't agree. Like, life is not pure suffering. It's not that everything is suffering and you have to break out from it. Like, life has so amazing qualities, but I see the point of saying, like, okay, I want to just accept everything and have like a true. I read an amazing book about this. Maybe I will. I can't tell you how it's like a story about a guy from the West that went to like a Shaolin monks, like, and started meditating there, and like he learned to meditate, and it's like a story, so it's really amazing to read, but it's like teaching you all the, like, he's going through all the steps, and it's really amazing, and like the way he did, like his meditation teacher, in the end he just went up into the hills because he was super old, and like he was super strong, but I think it was like at some point he was like, I'm gonna go into the hills and just go there to meditate and die, you know. And it seems really romantic, like it's just like that you're so in peace with yourself that you can just do this.
Yeah.
And
see you later. I'm gonna die now.
This is like this seems really cool, I think, to be able to do this. But also the thing you said with like letting everything go, like all empathy, all like, I think the romantic idea is more of thinking about, okay, I'm gonna like what you said, like I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna learn, so I'm not affected by the negative things, but I still feel the positive things. So like you pick the good things and use meditation as a tool. But in Buddhism, you can say, okay, maybe it's about leveling everything. So not only like everything is just like
and there's different schools and stuff, and I could completely be misunderstanding it, but it seems like a certain part of the goal is that one day you finish meditation, you go, hey, fuck you, mom, I don't care about you anymore, I'm leaving. I'm not going to see you again. I care about you as much as I care about the bush or the cloud in the sky. It's all immaterial. And it's like, well, I don't want that. But that could be just an oversimplification. Maybe once it gets to that point, it's something kind of different. But maybe it's the same thing with Christianity and lots of religions, and sacrifice, that to reach certain spiritual and religious goals in every religion I've seen requires a lot of sacrifice. So maybe that's the equivalent in Buddhism. And
maybe also it's not that you say fuck you, mom, maybe it's more that you say not that you start that you stop loving the things you love, but that you start loving everything. Like that is like enlightenment. That is like a thing that you're like, I'm not attached, but I'm like in the whole world is like, good. Like
which is a similar that's true. This fish matters as much to me, but I really love this fish, so don't feel bad. So you're like, okay, fantastic. There's a book by Kurt Vonnegut called, it was God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, and it's about a guy who's very like a Christ figure, and his father hates it, and he's like, oh, so you don't love me anymore? He's like, no, I love you as much as I love everybody. And he goes like, then you don't love anything. And it's just that sort of thing, that if nothing special is, if everything is special, is anybody special? And if you don't love somebody more than you love a stranger, then is it love?
It's hard.
It's a tricky one for sure. So I'm not sure about that at all, but I love meditation.
Nice.
And I find it very difficult still, but I find it very rewarding still. I've been doing it for years, but it still feels like I'll regularly find new things when I'm meditating. So I really like it.
This is interesting. Maybe I can ask you this because, like, actually since yesterday, I'm thinking about, you know Vipassana?
Do I know who?
Vipassana? Have you ever heard of it?
Vipassana?
Yes. I can explain. Because it's like a meditation retreats where you go, and it's like there are different time spans. I think like the main one is 10 days, and so you go into this place. They are like all over the world. They have like the centers, and you go there, and for 10 days you just meditate. It's like it's like everything is like organized. You stand up at 4 a.m. and then you meditate for like 1.5 hours. Then you have then you meditate for another hour. Then you eat something. Then you meditate for 2 hours. Then you have like half an hour break. Then you meditate. Like it's meditating for 10 hours. It's like you don't talk. You don't look people into the eye. You don't.
And is this for the whole It's like a silent retreat. Everything is silent.
I think there are like 2 times a day where you can ask the teachers if you have questions. Then like you're allowed to talk to them, but everything else is silent. And not only silent, you also like you shouldn't communicate with other people. So also like writing on a piece of paper, and this would not this counts as like it's like, oh, I'm silent. But also not sign language or anything. So
nice to meet you.
It's like you don't look people in the eye. Nothing. It's just like you're just. In the evening there is like I think half an hour or an hour there's some teaching, so there you listen to somebody talk, but otherwise you don't say anything. You're also not allowed to write anything down. You're just like and I'm thinking about doing this like
I think it sounds fantastic.
But I think it's gonna be really hard because like I did meditation as well, and this is a huge step of like 10 days.
It sounds intense. It's intense as shit.
Extremely intense.
But like really so rewarding is because it sounds like, and like, like when you jog, do you like jogging? Do you jog?
I don't jog, but I think I know where you're going. Yeah, you mean if you go for...
It sucks. It sucks. But it's nice to be finished. And you get the rewards. So like, it sounds like this will be very difficult. But the rewards of doing that for 10 days could be, could completely change your outlook. Because, 10 days. How long are we silent now? Like, really, besides when we're sleeping? How silent are we for...
Like, in my life, I listen to so many podcasts and stuff. I have never silenced. Like, I tried this a few times. Like, once I did, I think I was 18 or something, or 19, and I just went on the field like near our house with like a chair, put this chair there and sat there for 24 hours straight.
Really?
Did nothing. Yes, nothing. Not even meditating, just nothing.
I would have given up quick, especially at 18. I would have been like, after an hour I would have been like, fuck.
I didn't have a clock. I had brought I was sitting there, like I think somewhere in the morning at 10 I sat down and was like, okay, next morning like at 10 I know like the bells of the church will like ring and stuff, and then I'm allowed to go home again.
You were waiting for the church bells. That's really
and it's like so I was like, I'm gonna do this, and this was interesting, like. But I didn't really have like a big insight or anything, because when you do this, you expect like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna have like the super big new way of thinking, and I'm
24 hours.
Like,
I presume something.
But it was just like I just sat there and it was like that's it. And I'm a little bit afraid that this will happen with 10 days as well. But
you get 7 days and you're like, I'm getting no enlightenment. I'm darker. I'm darkened. This is not helping whatsoever.
I'm just sitting here and like. Bored. So I don't know, but I'm thinking about this. Maybe I will do this, and if I do this, I for sure make an episode about it. But I will. I think it's interesting because meditation is really interesting, and I think it's more like if I do this 10 days thing, it's more like exploration. It's like just see what happens, and it's like maybe it's 10 days. Maybe it's not so much. Maybe it's a huge change in life. Yeah.
I feel like it. I'm sure that there's people who go and there's no effect whatsoever. But I think with that kind of focus, because I can imagine that going out into a field with a chair, presumably some kind of realization. Maybe a realization is I don't like fields or whatever. But were you like, so you were completely by yourself?
Nothing else, just me.
You're just on a chair. You're just walking around every now and again.
No,
you didn't even get off the chair.
No, just to.
So this is during summer.
It was not so hot. It was just like a good. I don't know.
And I think you say 24
hours.
I think that sounds Elias, that's so intense. It sounds so intense.
Yeah.
And you didn't get any benefits?
No.
That's not good.
But I was in like
Was it a bad field?
No.
Maybe it was a field.
Oh. Wait, there is a timer here.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
I need to buy my friend cigarettes.
Good. Okay.
But we can keep talking. We can keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, wait. I was like this 24 hours. It was that I was mainly in like a state of. I was not really sleeping, but I was also not really awake. I was like just like sitting there and like in kind of a, like. Maybe this is different if you learn, like, because if I do this 10-day retreat, they really teach you what meditation means. So they're like, I think for the first 3 days straight, you only focus on like the point below your nose. So there's like only this point, and it's like 3 days straight. You only and after 3 days they start to teach you like body scan and stuff, and it's like super. It's taught. It's not like I'm just going to sit here for 24 hours. And that's it.
They don't throw you an apple and go, get out of here.
Yeah, and
go find it.
So maybe this is different. And I'm really thinking about trying it. But like 10 days, you can do a lot in 10 days. So I could also work on another goal. But
How often during that 10 days? How often would you be like, I could be biking? Yeah. I could be in on a mountain somewhere. I'm here with these silent idiots. Nobody makes eye contact with me. The thoughts, but I think that would be rewarding as well. That would be rewarding too in its own way.
I'm thinking about it. Okay, but to come back to you, I want to ask you about your goals, but I also want to know about your life, because what you told me now is that so you're from Ireland, and you also were in Myanmar, and also you were teaching in Spain as well.
I went to Vietnam.
Vietnam.
I've never been to Myanmar. Here it's fantastic though, but I haven't been.
Just if you want to just. If you can give like a 5-minute recap of your life, like a quick walkthrough. And you also told me, like, in this also I want to talk about, like in the sauna, that I don't know if it's okay to say this, but you had like cancer.
Yeah, this is a very intense sauna trip we had.
Yes, exactly.
I realize now that I was water deprived. I was just talking to try to not pass out. But I
was doing my push-ups. But
you were doing push-ups in the sauna. So I was just trying not to pass out while sitting down. So I grew up in Ireland. My father was English, my mother was Irish. They both still are. I have 6 full siblings and 2 other half siblings. So I have a very big family, and 7 of us grew up together in a very packed, very busy house. And then when I was going through it all now, it's very very strange. But we grew up in this big house. When I was 9, I got a tumor in my back, and I had to do chemotherapy for a year, and I had to get a rib and a bit removed. I had to. It was very, very intense. It was a very intense treatment, but I got over that. And I guess in terms of like the topic of meaning, I know it's just a biography for 5 minutes, but I think that affected how I viewed the meaning of life a lot. That it was a encounter with mortality outside of like a normal period, really, a very immediate, direct.
When you were 9 years old.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It was I lost all my hair. I was like green colored. I was very sick. So people didn't like look at me like I was like disgusting or anything, but a lot of like sympathy and a lot of like shocked looks and stuff, which was strange as a child to receive. So it kind of went completely against the narrative that I had had about what a normal life would be. So it had a big impact on my psychology and how I viewed the world. Then I got over that. I got better. I got all my hair back. It was really good. And then a few years later, because I had a couple of ribs removed, my spine bent and I got scoliosis and I needed more surgery. So much surgery. When I was 16, I got surgery for scoliosis. Then I went to university. When I was 19, I went to Ghana in West Africa for teacher training, close to Cape Coast in a central region, a really beautiful place, probably the most beautiful place I've ever been to in my life. Ghana was a breathtaking country. Ghanaian people were so nice, so warm. Everything about the country is fantastic. But when I was there, I got malaria and I got encephalitis. I got bitten by some bugs. Yeah, I know. It was like, it's not good. But I went back to Ireland and they didn't know it was a tropical disease. So they treated me as if I had a flu. But I had encephalitis, which causes your brain to swell. And I had malaria, which makes you dehydrated, which also causes your brain to swell. So I went into a seizure. I had a seizure a couple of weeks after I came back I lived in Ghana for 6 months and I came back. And 3 weeks later, I had like a seizure and they put me into a coma. And yeah, when I passed out, I was on a beach with my friend. We were in Ireland. I was on the beach with my friend. I was feeling shitty, but I just thought it was a flu. Even though it had been a flu for a long time, I was skinny. I was like, you see every bone in my body. But I was like, I just came back from Africa. I'll just eat for a while. I'll be fine. And I passed out on the beach. Like I lost my balance. I fell over, felt like my eyes closed. And then I opened up my eyes and I was in hospital. And I was like, oh. And they're like asking me questions. They're like, what's your name? And I was like, Ross Howardovich. Like, how old are you? I was like, 20. And they're like, okay. And like to my mom, I was like, okay. He doesn't seem to have brain damage. And she started crying. I just woken up. So I was like, what's happening? What is this? And they're like, and I saw the sun was going down. And I was like, Jesus. I was in the hinge this morning. Like that. How long was I out for? I must have been out for 8 hours. In my head, I was like, shit. I was visiting my friend. I was like, now my trip to the beach is ruined. And they're like, Ross, today's Tuesday. You passed out on Sunday. You've been asleep for 3 days. And I was like, what? So that was, out of all the things that happened to me, that I think might have been the most trippy, the strangest, because everything else when I've been like for operations, they'd be like, you'll wake up in 18 hours or whatever. This one, I was really like, it must still be Sunday. It must be Sunday evening. And I heard all those things that when you're in a coma, you dream or you feel the time passing and people say things to you and then you imagine them. Mine was like, I fell over on the beach. I opened my eyes. I was in the hospital. It was Tuesday. So it was wild, but I recovered from that, carried on with university, finished university. And when I was 22, I went to Madrid to teach English. And I lived in Spain for 4 years because I always loved Spanish. I always wanted to lockdown, I came here. And that has been my life up till now, pretty much. Like,
yes. That's those are a lot of stories that could have gone really wrong. Like, especially.
Yeah, lots of them did go wrong.
Yeah.
It was still going into a coma, still it going wrong.
Yeah.
It could have went worse for sure.
Yeah, but now if I see you now, like, you're really fit. You have really good body. Everything is like. In the end, it's okay. You know, it's like
yeah.
Like, maybe not everything. Like, of course, I just saw you in the sauna. It's like, but still, it means it's not all bad.
No. And I recovered from it, and I think it did influence my idea of meaning and what it is to find a purpose in life. I still feel like I haven't really resolved it. I'm going to go back to teaching, I think, because I worked in a corporate environment now, and it was the reason I really started working there was because they were like a startup engine for supporting environmentally friendly startups. So I was like, this is as green as a corporate space gets. It was not. Things were sponsored by Shell and things. The CEO was getting a private jet back and forth from Monaco to Amsterdam twice a week because he wanted to be in the office. He runs a green startup company. Like, it was like, oh, this is nonsense. So I would like to be in a space where it feels like it's a positive thing, because obviously so many things are corporate. The corporate sphere is hard to get away from. And even like in schools and things, you still have to, everything is still tied in with corporations and corporate interests. So I'm trying to find meaning, even though I quite dislike that reality, about how much the world is controlled by corporations, and controlled by corporations in a way where it doesn't seem like there's a long-term goal for humanity. It's just until the next quarter. And I find that very depressing sometimes. I find that it beats me down, and that wears away my sense of meaning in the world. It really wore away my sense of meaning when I was working in Den Haag.
What do you mean by meaning? Like, what do you think is meaningful? If you say that, yeah.
I think it would be trying to create a sense of progress amongst people, which isn't defined by shallow or ephemeral goals. So I think in a very collectivist way, I think generally. Maybe it's because I grew up in a house with like 7 kids. Excuse me. I'm getting over a cough. It's the start of the next disease. But maybe it was growing up in a house where I was sharing a bedroom most of my first 18 years with like 3 kids or 2 kids. It really gave me a sense of collectiveness. And sometimes I feel like it would be more useful to me if I was naturally more focused on myself. I find a sense of meaning from collectively going forwards towards something. And like I said, not something shallow, like just profit. I would like to think that humans could get to the point where we see the value in other things, but I'm not sure if that's possible to have something based more in everybody having enough without that turning into something authoritarian or negative. But I get meaning when I meet people who I feel like their own interests are not their primary interests. Their primary interests are more collectively focused. They're more focused on their family, on their students, on their community. And I think sometimes that doesn't come so easily to me either. Maybe I look at things from that perspective, but I can still be very selfish. But when I meet people who really think about the community aspect first, I find it very inspiring. And it's something that I try to do. So I think in terms of like where I get the greatest sense of meaning, it's when I'm least focused on myself and my own ego. And there's been certain parts of my life where that's felt very easy and very natural. And that's when I've been most happy, is when I'm not really thinking about myself. But again, I don't find that easy. I think I look at things collectively, like I look at things from the group, but a lot of the time my stream one way of thinking would be, give me that, that's mine. I grew up in a house where, you fight for slices of pizza and stuff. So I was thinking collectively, but also being like, everything is like, that's mine. Otherwise your shit gets broken. So I feel like this has gotten away from me a bit, but I would say the parts of my life when I felt most meaning are when I'm focused on community or other people rather than myself.
So do you say meaning is when you feel meaningful? So something is meaningful because it feels meaningful?
Because it feels meaningful.
Yeah, because like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but how you tell me if I'm wrong? But you said that you get the greatest sense of meaning when you do something for, or when you think in a collective way, when you do something for the community. So do you say that it's like objectively meaningful to do, like to make a positive impact in the society or in your environment, or is it just meaningful because it feels meaningful?
I think saying something as objectively meaningful is very difficult, because meaning is almost by its definition is subjective. Do you know? Because meaning is it is an individual thing, right? Like it's something you feel inside.
Depends on how you define it, but
that's true. Okay, yeah. That's true. Yeah. I think the most useful and the best way to find meaning in the world is through something which helps others. And I think that's a cliche. It's very obvious. But I think that a lot of the ways that we've become individualized and atomized do eat away at our collective sense of meaning. And I feel like we're kind of going through a crisis of meaning to an extent, especially places like Europe and America. You see grand narratives break apart, and the way that people find meaning is much more separated and individuated. And without these grand narratives, it becomes much harder to find something collective that you can work towards. So as how people achieve a sense of meaning, as it changes, as I see it become more individualized, I see it becoming, from my perspective, and I'm older, so it's like I'm 31, so a lot of this stuff might just be me getting old and being like Instagram bullshit. TikTok is evil and stuff like that. Just old man stuff. Okay, well, yeah, there's also that.
I'm an old man as well.
At heart, you have an old broken heart. Yeah.
Do 24 hours in the chair, you know? You know how much I aged.
Yeah. But so much of what I see on Instagram and TikTok is the search for approval, the search for community, and the creation of these artificial communities which aren't enriching, which are still break you away from everything. And it seems like the rates of mental illness are going up as these things become popular. There's such a drive for it. There's such an individuating effort. There's such a thing that, like, it's almost like what we were talking about before. If you love everybody, do you love anybody? If you are connected to everybody, are you connected to anybody? Is this constant being bombarded by everything that's happening in Israel and Palestine? It's good that we know. But what effect does that have on people, like on their sense of self, when you see something terrible happening in Yemen, in Guatemala, in France, in China, in Japan, in Ireland, in Netherlands, everywhere, all of this massive suffering just inundating you, and all this massive extra information inundating you. You're connected to everybody, but at that stage, how connected are you to anyone?
True. Question about this. So not especially about the connection, but about you. So you say it's meaningful, like about objective, like you didn't claim objective meaning, right? You just say it's meaningful because it feels. Is it because it feels right, or like, so it is not right to do something, like, if you say there is no objective meaning, then it would mean that like nothing matters, like in the grand scheme. Like, do you like you,
I suppose in the grand scheme, everything that we do is likely to not matter.
So if I could just go out and start torturing little children, and it would be fine.
Where would you get them from? No.
I won't explain my secrets.
Where would you get all these kids from? That's what I want to know. No. Of course, it's good to minimize pain and to maximize utility, but it's something else. Like when you say, like, what is utility? Because maybe an engineer in the 19th century in Victorian England gets incredible sense of meaning from designing machines. And you could say that that has helped people so much. People in Victorian England designed steamships and steam-powered trains and, industrial factories and everything that our world is based on. And from one perspective, that's an excellent thing, and that's a great way to get your meaning from. But in another way, that has been one of the core parts of the destruction of our earth. So it's like, from one perspective, that's a very positive way to get your meaning from. From another perspective, it's a very negative thing. So it's these kind of areas where it's where they kind of cross over, where it's like, how could it not be subjective? Because there's everything. Torturing kids, obviously, it's an extreme example. How can you create benefit from that?
But okay, so how do you measure benefit? So if you say there is benefit, so that means there is something that is objectively better than something else. So like suffering or like suffering is objectively worse than no suffering. So there is like a underlying or overarching function that gives your action meaning. Like, for example, the engineer, it depends on where you look. It would be a meaningful or not meaningful action, or you say, okay, it's subjective, but still there is. Do you believe that there is something that underlies it, like suffering, that you want to stop suffering, or no, not you want to, but like this would be something, this would be like an anchor to anchor good and bad, or so you have like an anchor where you can anchor your subjective good and bad, or is it just that you choose like a random good and bad, and then this is like, okay, I'm an engineer, I like this, I think this is good, so this is good?
I think that's how it works most of the time. Sort of reflecting what we talked about stream 1 and stream 2 thinking, I think a lot of it is finding something you're good at, finding something you kind of enjoy. Subjective. I think it is very subjective, and you can find meanings from trying to do things which you view as positive and that are likely to have a positive impact. I took a long break from being a teacher, and I think I'm gonna go back to it, but I think like teaching history and English to children would give a real sense of meaning, because it would give me a chance to broaden other people's perspective, broaden children's perspective, give them a way of analyzing the world, give them different tools for looking at how things work and questioning how certain things work. So in terms of like nailing or anchoring your beliefs at a certain point, I think you have to with what you have. So like I grew up in Ireland in the 90s and the 2000s. My beliefs have been very shaped by that. My parents are both hippie academics. My belief system has been very shaped by that. But I think it's always important to question yourself, and you can never reach bullshit, because there's certain arguments that you're like, okay, this is true and this is false. And when I think about what's positive in the world, when I was working at a corporation, all of the things seemed like just paring away barely the surface. It was so clearly, so much of it was bullshit. So much of it was bullshit. It was a profit-driven company that will do anything that I could see for profit. But I think there is a difference between really trying to do something meaningful and trying to get to that point, and just following the stream of society and being like, well, this must be okay up to a point if everybody's doing it. And I think that's why I took the job, was because where I had like landed my anchor since I was a kid was like quite left wing and free speech and positive in terms of education. And as I got older and things became more and more corporate, and more of my friends began working in a corporate sphere, and it became more about becoming an adult and getting money, my anchor got pulled away from the point where it was. And the further it got pulled away from that point, and maybe it's just because I landed on this point for my anchor when I was 15 or 16, but that still feels like the true thing to me. And when I was working at this place, I had a lot of problems. I felt stressed. I felt a problem. I couldn't sleep. I was starting to have things close to panic attacks. I think it was because I was just going to a place where it had just such a profound emptiness when it came to meaning for me. I couldn't see what the benefit was that we were doing. If anything, it seemed like we are masquerading as positive while being generally negative, while still enforcing a kind of a very surface sheen of being green, of being ecologically friendly, and then actually having none of that. And I think, yeah, it's hard to nail down inauthenticity and authenticity. But the amount of inauthenticity I saw in the corporate sphere while I was there, like, you know, all the LinkedIn shit, like, it's the fakest thing in the world. It's so transparently fake. And so I would want to get away from that. I think that finding real meaning, you have to divorce yourself. You have to try to ignore the way that the wind is blowing in society. You can't just be pushed along by other people, because then that means that you'll never achieve anything if you don't have that anchor to hold you down. Does it make sense, or is it just rambling at this stage? 'Cause I'm trying to explain it. So I felt like I was in this space. I cared about these things. And as I saw more and more people going to the corporate sphere and graduating, having things, I was like, well, I need to do that. And I kind of panicked. And I felt like I was trying to put my beliefs like here. So it's still aligned partially with my beliefs, but lots of my beliefs, I was like, I have to let them go. They're childish. And I don't think I can let some of those core beliefs go.
Do you believe that, is this because they are true, or because they are like the ones you grew up with?
The ones I grew up with, and also the ones that throughout my life, when I've put them to the test, the ones that didn't come up with nonsense. Okay,
the ones that didn't turn out to be false.
Exactly, yes. Exactly. So, values I have that I feel like meaningful, not getting angry when something as small as not getting angry when I talk to someone. Because like something else I heard when I was a kid was, don't disagree with people and don't talk about difficult subjects. I think that is horseshit. I think you should absolutely talk about difficult subjects. But another one I heard is, don't get angry at people when you talk about these kind of things. That is good advice, I think. Because then if you get emotional about the things that you do feel emotional about, it just reduces into a shouting match. But if you don't discuss these things and these things aren't open, then you can't directly address them. So I think I grew up with values that I've abandoned because I don't think that they're useful. There's other values that I've tried to put to the tests that I feel are useful and are do enrich my life and make it feel more meaningful, like meditating and feeling more in the moment and feeling calmer. And then there's other lessons which I've picked up from friends and people around me, which I try to live by. So I think it involves trying to see other people that you think are living good lives. See how those lives correspond to their own belief system and what they do, and try to take inspiration from that. And don't get bogged down or caught up with money. I'm really bad at money, so this is just like... this is also like a poor person point. Like, don't worry about that. Obviously, you should worry about it, but don't be led by that. I see almost everything in our society primarily being led by money. And again, everything seems to keep going back to the stream 1 and stream 2 thing, because everything that I see or most things that I see in the news, most big international events, I feel like can get put back to money first, and the moralizing came afterwards. It was money and power, and then the moralizing came afterwards, is what it felt like to me. For example, this is maybe a controversial example or so, but like, let's say Ukraine and Russia. I feel like a lot of that was money first, money and power first. What's the best way that America and Europe can make money? And then the moralizing followed. They're like, we have to support Ukraine. We have to do this. I think the main motivation was waste the Russian army, supply weapons to the Ukraine. And then afterwards, they're like, but we're doing it so they can be free from Russians. And it's like, that's not the reason.
Okay, so you have like an incentive that you want to follow, and after you give it like you give your incentive like a moral reason. Like you start like there is a underlying reason why some people want something, and then they like create a moral compass around it. Like
create
like
some kind of narrative.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like the system 1 and 2 thinking, that you start with the system 1, you do something because of some reasons, and after you find like a explanation for why you did it.
I think absolutely, and I think some people do that consciously, like people who sell rocket launchers, that make rocket launchers in Virginia and want to sell them to people in Kiev. They probably know. They're like, no, this is about profit. This is about profit. But I'm sure that there's so many politicians who all over the world who go into something exactly like this and go, okay, so the pressure's coming from this. If we do this, our supporters will make a lot of money and we'll also hurt our enemy. And they're like, that make me a shitty person? They go, no, because Russia is attacking Ukraine. That's the thing. But it's like, there's another 10 Ukraines happening around the world that America either doesn't care about at all or is actively supporting the person who's hurting them. So why is this matter so much? It's because it's convenient. And what I see in a lot of politics is convenient power moves, and then it's pretended to be a moral thing. And it's like a cliche. I feel like this is like such an old cliche, but it's something I still see every day with news that's happening right now. And this idea is like, they invent this stuff, like it's about power and it's about money, and they'll come up with the morals later. I think is almost like a truism. But whenever something happens now, it gets ignored until 10 years later. Like, for example, the Iraq War. At the time, there was so many people who go, no, this is this is like when we fought Hitler. This is like when we fought Stalin. This is like a good moral war. And it's like, no, it isn't. This is a convenient chance to attack something. And then 10 years later, everybody is like, okay, that's fine. So it's like, it is a certain struggle with human nature and our emotions and our psychology, and the fact that these are being manipulated maybe more than they've ever been before. Does that make sense? Are we being more psychologically manipulated? Because people used to have religion, but was that psychological manipulation if you don't think you're manipulating the person?
The question is if the people now consciously try to manipulate, because you said like the people with the rocket launchers probably do, but like
for sure,
but many other people don't. I think most of the people believe in the things they say, probably.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm more of a pessimist. I feel like you're very optimistic.
Yes, I am. But you're right. Maybe. So you say it's a difference because like in the church, the people really believed like that the how is it called when they went to like all the knights. They went in
crusades.
In the crusades, they were like, this is the right thing, and they were all like really behind it. So this was better than now, where the people consciously know that they're deceiving other people.
I wouldn't say no. I'm not saying it's better. Because then I'm like the crusades, 10 out of 10. No. Like I don't think it's great. Not better, but manipulation involves a purposeful effort to manipulate, right? Because it'd be unconscious. Would that still be manipulation? I guess it still is. I guess it's because I was just, it was a really a throwaway thing when we're undergoing more psychological manipulation than ever before. And I was like, is that true? I don't know if that's true. We're undergoing a huge amount of psychological and emotional manipulation constantly. to the point where you, I think, really have to separate yourself from it. And if you want to really find meaning, I think, and it's not available to everybody, but I think a good way of finding real meaning is something like what you're doing. Like you're very informed, you study psychology, you're doing this podcast, you're trying to find out different approaches, and you're thinking about going to this meditation retreat. Meditation retreat.
After it's the medication.
One first, then the other.
Exactly.
The meditation retreat. So you can sit with these thoughts and reflect and do these kind of things. And that's a luxury to be able to do that. But I think that is one of the best ways to really find meaning. Like soak up as much knowledge as you can, and then put away your phone, put away your laptop, and heavily reflect on it, on what you've learned and your experiences. And I think that's a much better way of finding meaning than anything you're going to find on Twitter or Instagram, which is such an old thing to say. but it's true. But it's true. It's, you can't find it just from the outside world. It is going to be a synthesis of your internal values and your external experiences. And the only way, I think, to really combine those two in a way which will be useful for your actions and your behavior in the future is serious study and then serious reflection.
Where is the truth? Because you say, like, okay, you can search for you can search for meaning. You can you get information from the outside and you reflect on it, and then you find your meaning. So this is somewhat. And you also said that there are things that are more true than others. So there are. You found out that there.
Did I?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure.
Which things are more true than others?
For example, you actually made an example for this. Your example was that you shouldn't talk about bad stuff with people is wrong, but that you shouldn't get angry when you talk, or you shouldn't talk about uncomfortable stuff is wrong. Mm-hmm. And also before you said that there are things that are more right than others, and I would like to explore where this comes from, because it's super hard, because I think many people, I don't even know, like maybe it's because I see this in so many people, like that they say, okay, there is no objective meaning, it's everything is like subjective, but still somewhere there is an anchor, like so many like also like you said, okay, there is like not really this objective thing, but somewhere you have an anchor, like there is something that is better than other things.
I think that it's very there is no objective truth, there is no absolute objective truth. We can keep searching. Humans are not really, we haven't evolved to find an absolute truth. We've evolved to survive in a forest and work together. We're not built to have senses to help us find any absolute truth. What could that be? That we see atoms, that we see things on a molecular level? Is that more true than the way we perceive it? Because it's more of a map, the way that we see ourselves. I don't think so, but I don't think that I think it's still good to try to aim for objectivity. As paradoxical as that is. Yeah, because there's a certain thing with history where when like there is no objective truth, and it's like there is no absolute perfect history, that's 100% true. But a lot of people took that to mean like, oh, so I don't have to try. So it's more about me shaping. Okay, cool. It's like, no, you should still try to challenge yourself and try to be objective. It's an ideal. It's like the Buddha or Jesus. You try to do it. Nobody expects you to, or few people expect you to reach the perfect ideal, but it doesn't mean you don't go for it, even if it's impossible.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. And I think I agree, but it's super hard to phrase, because like for so many people unconsciously it's like, oh no, there's no subjective right or wrong. And then I say, like, for example, the torturing children example, no, this is wrong.
Like, what if those children, what if they were bad children? Of course.
But okay, I can just ask my closing question. And okay, so this question is, do you have any book or YouTube video or podcast or any kind of knowledge, any kind of media that you would really advise people to read, watch, whatever, that you would advise me to read, watch, whatever?
For meaning or just in general?
Just the thing you would advise, like if you could give people one thing that they have to read or just one thing, or the thing that influenced yourself the most. Just the thing that comes to mind. It can also be it can also be a fantasy book. If you say this is such an amazing, like Harry Potter was so amazing.
I wrote a
Harry
book
Potter.
called Changing Names, which you can find on Amazon Kindle in 3 days. That will solve your problems. No. Maybe his Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman really struck me very hard. It's a fantasy series for children with 3 books in it. And it deals with issues of religion and authority, but in a very interesting way, in a very compelling way.
This has been a Rational Optimization podcast. I hope you learned something. As you may know, I'm trying to make this podcast as good as possible. Like, I'm trying to provide as much value as I possibly can in every episode to you. So today I'm not asking you for like a 5-star review or anything like this. I'm asking you, could you please, if you have any idea what I can improve to make this podcast, or to make each episode, or to just make this episode, if I would do it again, more valuable to you, can you give me feedback? Like on Spotify there are those feedback boxes, and on YouTube you can write a comment. It would be really amazing if you would help me to make this podcast as good as possible. See you in the next one.